Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. This is, in fact, and I quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to some of the best creators from all over the world, but we find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of And I Quote Channel, and our guest on this episode is a gentleman and a scholar and an indie writer himself. Yeah, Jason DeGray is in the building. Elementary, my dear Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ryan, and thanks for having me on.
We're very happy to have you here with us, Jason. We're also happy to have you here with us. You may be watching or listening to this right now, so do not forget to like and share this with your closest friends. If you're watching us live or on the replay, thank you so much for doing that. And if you have any questions for the guest of honor, Jason DeGray, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. I'm more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. With all that being said, Jason, what were some of your favorite books or writers growing up when you were younger?
Oh, man, when I was younger, I was absolutely fascinated with the Dragonlance series. Do you? I don't know if you're familiar with those or.
Sorry, I am not familiar with this. I know dragons, but I'm not familiar with that series.
Yeah. It was, or is, I guess, a D&D world module, and it is, those stories, that the entire series, really captured my imagination, when I was younger. And so I could not get enough of those. I think I read every book in the entire series. And that series was actually my first heartbreak with literature because of how it ended. And I do you know what can you relate with this? Whenever you get done reading a book and it just breaks your heart, or you get done with the series and you're just heartbroken and can't believe, why would you do that? That type of thing in the book series itself. And so that was also my first heartbreak with a literary adventure, was the Dragonlance series as well. But when I was younger, I would say that those were pretty much the books that inspired me the most.
Okay. I don't think I've experienced quite the emotions of losing a loved one, or you broke my heart, Fredo. You broke my heart. I know it was you, Fredo. Yet I haven't really experienced that. But then again, there's a lot of books behind me in my studio that I've yet to read, and maybe some of those will break my heart and bring on the waterworks. I don't know yet. I haven't. In other words, let my people call your people. We'll get back to you. But no, I understand that. And D&D has been popular for many, many years. And there have been a number of guests that we've had on this program who have said D&D is what got me into so-and-so, or it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite games to play, or something I just really enjoy learning about, reading about, or just experiencing or doing, LARPing, when they do that kind of deal. So it's D&D. It's out there day and day. Man, there's a riff on an AC/DC for you right there. But hey, music is the language of the soul. We can use it for many types of reasons. What were some of your favorite movies, past or present?
Some of my favorite movies. My favorite movie of all time is Willow.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know why, but I have watched that movie so many times that I can recite it from the beginning all the way through until the end. To this day, I can still do a pretty good job with that. And I thought that was, again, I guess that was right around the time of, my fascination with the Dragonlance and the high fantasy and all of that type of stuff. And so that might be one of the reasons that it has, captured my imagination. But I really do think it's great, and I love it. Some of my other top favorite movies would be The Fifth Element. I think that is one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. And there is also Big Trouble in Little China. Pretty much anything that John Carpenter puts out, I think, is automatic classic territory. But that movie in particular is, I don't know how. I don't know anybody. How can you not like that movie? It's just fun. It's just adventure. It's just kooky magic and all of that type of stuff. It's fast. It's a great movie. And so I would say that those are my, I guess my top three movies of all time, past or present.
Good picks there. Good picks for sure. I was gonna say, anybody else want to negotiate? See, there you go. There you go. I couldn't help it, man. Fifth Element's got some of the best one-liners or zingers in there. I mean, dude, Chris Rock being on caffeine that whole shoot. Come on, my man. I mean, come on.
Right. Caffeine.
Yeah, or whatever he was on. Or maybe it was just a character presentation. I'm not saying he did one thing or the other, but still, he had a lot of energy in that for sure. And then Gary Oldman hamming it up as the villain. I mean, come on.
Oh, it was. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I mean, it was so good, and the story itself was pretty great too. I mean, I loved, and then I loved, the way Luc Besson, just created that world. That sci-fi world was really expansive for, for the on-screen stuff, and I think that he did. But I think that that's one of Luc Besson's strengths is, the expansive world creation and stuff like that. Because you can say what you want about Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets, but visually it's a pretty stunning movie. And even if the story will put you to sleep after about the halfway point, but that's what he does. That's what he does, and I really loved the movie for that. And then of course, Bruce Willis doing the one-liners is he delivers them perfectly. I mean, there's just everything came together to make such a perfect movie, and I cannot say anything bad about it.
Yeah, it's almost like John McClane in space. Die Hard in space, maybe.
Yeah.
Could be because he did all the Die Hards.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what happens if John McClane drove a cab?
Yeah, what if he drove a cab? You're pretty fast there, Argyle. There's a line for you from the original Die Hard. That's yeah. Do you really think about contact us about that cowboy? It's just, come on. We miss you, Alan Rickman. We miss you.
Yeah,
we miss Alan Rickman. We're always going to miss Alan Rickman for sure. There's no doubt about it. What would you say are some of your favorite TV series, past or present?
Oh man, let's see. I really have a deep love and appreciation for Farscape. I think that as far as series go, that is fantastic. I still watch it to this day. I will sit down and watch episodes of Farscape because I think that the Jim Henson Company did a great job with the puppetry and the special effects and stuff like that, but the storytelling and all of that is top notch. One of my favorite space series, but my favorite space series of all time has to be Babylon 5. I think that J. Michael Straczynski did a fantastic job telling a complete story from beginning to end. He wasn't trying to milk it for all it was worth and go way beyond to jump the shark and do as many seasons as he could and all of this type of stuff. He just told his story, and I think that it came off fantastic, and it is one of the greatest space series I think ever on television. And then I also have a love for this. This is kind of a throwback, but Bruce Campbell did a series back in the 90s called The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. And, it was a Weird West type of series. And so this is really what got me, my imagination sparked in that whole, steampunky type of thing before that had really hit the scene. And, that was that and the movie Wild West with Will Smith and who else was that? I can't remember.
Kevin Kline.
Yeah. I mean, those things were really, kind of, steampunk before it had hit the scene, and that was kind of, sparked my imagination and really fueled a lot of what I wrote about as far as Those Left Behind is concerned, and the imagery and stuff like that I was trying to capture with that comes from those pretty early influences.
All right, that's a solid list, and I've heard from a few people on this show about their love of Farscape, Babylon 5. It's funny because Bruce Boxleitner is going to be in Oaks, Pennsylvania this weekend for RetroCon, which is happening right now in the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah, Bruce Boxleitner. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting him once many years ago, and I told him how I really appreciated his performance in Tron Legacy, even though it was limited screen time. But he also came back for Tron Uprising, the animated series, which was a prequel to Tron Legacy, and he did the voiceover as Tron. And I said, hey, man, I just want to tell you, I think the world they build with Tron is phenomenal. It's great. It's wondrous to behold, in my opinion. And Tron Legacy is an underrated movie. I think Tron Legacy is a really solid film. I mean, it's my favorite IMAX 3D experience I've ever had in a theater, Jason, to be perfectly honest with you. And going to the grid and hearing Daft Punk do the score, come on, man.
Right. That's awesome. I have not seen it in the theater or in 3D, so man, that makes me want to do it. So, hopefully they'll do a re-release.
Well, I mean, it would be nice. I don't know if they're going to do it because technically this year is the 15-year anniversary of Tron Legacy, and a new Tron movie's coming out this year called Tron Ares with Jared Leto at the helm, which I'm a bit weary about. Mm-hmm. But, well, I mean, the first trailer for Tron Ares looks really good, to be honest with you. I think it looks really, really good. But then again, we've seen great trailers for horrible films. We've seen bad trailers for really good films, Edge of Tomorrow being one of them. Mm-hmm. So who knows? I'm looking forward to seeing it. I will see where it goes. I'm going to keep an open mind about some of these things because I feel Tron is a world that needs to be explored even further than it has been. Because all we have are the 2 movies in the animated series. So technically you have a trilogy, if you want to call it that, hypothetically, which is fine. But there's so many different things you can do with Tron, in my opinion. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Tron Ares, with this new movie coming out. And if this movie does well, successfully with the box office and the response from the fans and the critics alike, then maybe we'll get even more Tron in the future. And I would like to see that because who doesn't want to go on the grid, man, and do some light cycle battles? Come on.
Right. Would you consider Tron a cyberpunk movie?
I guess in a way, yeah. I would say so. I mean, it's still, what do you call it? It's digital, I don't know if I want to say it's dystopian because it's set inside of a computer. So it's like cyberpunk virtual reality, or it's a techno thriller, maybe.
Right. Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
If anyone feels differently, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat, because Tron can fit into a couple of categories. It's part sci-fi, part adventure, right? It's cyberpunk, as Jason pointed out. I think cyberpunk's a good way to describe it, to be honest. So we'd have to think about that. But if you have a thought on it, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Do not forget to like and share this. And if you're watching this live on Memorax, there's a throwback for you, Jason. Thank you for doing so. What made you decide to become a writer, Jason?
I love telling stories, and I've always had a very active imagination, and this was something that lent itself, naturally to storytelling, and I loved. That's what I love to do. And, going out into the yard when I was a kid, having sticks and swords and killing orcs and going on quests and adventures and all of this type of stuff. I mean, this is the type of stuff that really fueled my imagination as a kid, more so than like TV or video games or, books or anything like that. I would read a cool story and then want to go out and, practice, live it out, basically. And so that's kind of what fueled that. And so it's a natural progression into writing. And so I remember sitting down and trying to write my first novel when I was 12. And there's a very vivid memory I have of me sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table with a bunch of loose leaf notebook paper trying to write this novel while my family is in the living room watching Days of Thunder. And I was just trying to get these ideas out on paper, and that was the beginning of what I wanted to do, and I have been chasing that high ever since, I guess. And the more that I've done it, the deeper my appreciation for storytelling, the importance of storytelling, and how we use stories to literally shape and define our reality has become. And so now I can't see myself really wanting to do anything else, because at this point in my life, I really think that, that everything is a story, and that, the importance of stories then for that fact alone cannot be overstated. And so to be able to give people new stories, to be able to experience the world or new worlds, or themselves with, is is something that I think is a worthwhile endeavor.
So in other words, you pull a Bilbo Baggins, I'm going on an adventure, and then you also say that life is a never-ending story.
Oh my gosh, that's a double whammy.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's one of the most popular fantasy adventure movies of all time. If anyone hasn't seen the Never-Ending Story yet, you're doing yourself a disservice.
right.
But I grew up watching that, man. So I didn't really care much for it at the time, because when you're a kid, you're just enjoying the ride. But when you look back on it, you think to yourself, wow,
Right.
if someone is able to write something like this and it becomes this kind of never-ending story, because that's what life is to a certain extent. It's a never-ending story. It just keeps on. It's like an Energizer Bunny. It keeps on going and going and going.
Right.
But life is a never-ending story, my friend. We can imagine ourselves, on Luck Dragons. No, it's not a dog. People said Falcor is a dog. He may look like one, but he's not. He's a luck dragon. All right, get that through your head.
Right.
And the nothing takes away your imagination, takes away the ideas, and that's what Atreyu and Bastion were battling in the movie. So, in other words, when you watch Neverending Story as a kid, it's one thing, but when you watch it as an adult, the Neverending Story has a completely different meaning. So, and there have been essays written about this, and there have been video essays that have been published on social media. So if you go to YouTube and look up the true meaning of Neverending Story, there's a mini documentary that will come up and dive into this a lot better than I can, because I'm just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe, whereas there are people out there who are experts and they're far smarter than I am, Jason. So feel free to look up the essays on YouTube. There's some really good essays out there for sure. But no, I hear where you're coming from when it comes to storytelling and all that kind of jazz. What would you say are some of the biggest rewards about being a writer?
For me, it's writing stories that people enjoy, and hearing the feedback of this is, I loved this story, I loved this character, I loved this scene, and all of that type of stuff. That's really great. And that's definitely up there at the top of the list. But for me, just as high on that list is the fact that that I've created another world, that I've created this thing that was just in my head, that was just these random ideas and thoughts and images and stuff like that I was seeing in my head, and that I actually turned that into something tangible, something that people can hold in their hand, as far as like a book goes and things like this. I took something that wasn't there before, and and now it is, for whatever whatever that is, and whatever people want to attach to that. But yeah, those are the two, I guess, really big things for me as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. On the opposite side of this equation, what are some of the biggest challenges about being a writer?
Oh, well, anymore, it's the advent of the self-publishing industry. That's one of the biggest challenges of being a writer. People like to complain about, before, with the gatekeepers and traditional publishing and all of that, and nobody, how many good writers and good stories and good worlds were, brushed aside because they couldn't make it past the gatekeepers. But now we have the opposite problem, and now we have just a tsunami of books and information and stories. I think Amazon is up to 45 million books or something like that it offers for sale and counting, and there's something like 2 million books a year that get published on that thing. I mean, and so now it's just a sea of stories and information and books and all of this type of stuff, and not all of them great. And so how are you supposed to um, rise above that crowd, right? How are you supposed to make your voice heard in a voice of 45 million people screaming? And that's one of the biggest challenges, I think, about being an author, in the modern world. And so, like I said, it's weird because you think that I'm anybody can publish a book, anybody can do this. Now it's so easy. It's not like it was before with those mean old gatekeepers, and keeping people out, and it's evened out. Does that make sense? Like you still can't get your voice heard. You have a different kind of gatekeeper. Now your gatekeeper is just this expansive mass of information, and it's so much information that it's kind of turning people off. And so I think that that's another thing is having to spark that reader interest and things like that. People, I don't know, because they have so much information at their fingertips, I don't think that they are as actively seeking out content and stuff like that as they were even 20 years ago. I don't think that that's as much of a thing anymore, because it's just there. And so to try to spark that reader's interest, to excite them, to try to get them to expand their imagination and look into the world, when all the biggest obstacle we have now is passive consumption. I mean, so I think that that's a very hard thing, a very hard roadblock to get past, in the writer world right now.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of challenges out there. And thank you for sharing that with us. Do greatly appreciate it. What advice would you give to aspiring writers out there?
Well, it's to tell your stories, and to create your worlds, and to do that, and to always seek excellence. Try to do the best you can, and to understand that practice makes perfect, and everything takes time. That you are not going to start writing and automatically be a Pulitzer Prize winning author, or a Hugo Award winning author, or whatever genre award that you get, winning author. That's not going to happen. That if this is really something that you want to do, that you have to actually work at it, and you have to learn how to craft stories. That telling a story, especially in print, in a book, is the entire process is a work of art, not just the story. It's the layout and the design, it's the editing, it's the how you structure your book and put it together so that it flows from the beginning through the middle to the end. I mean, all of this is an element in crafting a book, really. And so you can't just look at it as like, well, I told my story, yeah, but that's one part of it. And and so there are all these other different elements that you actually have to go out there and get good at in order to craft a great piece of art, as far as a literature and a book is concerned, and to actually not think that any one of those elements is less important than the others, because that is untrue. They are all equally important.
So in the words of Morgan Freeman, he's right,
Right.
Yeah, he is. You bring up really good points. And once again, this is And I Quote with the guest of honor, Jason DeGray. Don't forget to like and share. If you have any questions, let us know in those comments. And if you're joining this live or what is known as a replay, thank you so much for doing so. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a little bit. So Those Left Behind, for someone who's unfamiliar with this, what exactly is Those Left Behind, and how did this come about?
Well, it's a weird space Western. That's how I like to describe it. And it came about because of an idea that I had some time ago for a world that I was actually going to try to run an RPG in. And so I had flushed out this world and never got around to running the role-playing game. But I had this idea, this story in my head of what I wanted to happen, these characters, and this world was just very vivid and alive in my head, and so I started writing it down. And this was actually the longest book that I had ever written, for some reason took me years to get this story down. I just kept fighting with it. I had lost the manuscript at some point because I do all of my stuff analog first, so on an old school typewriter, and so I'd lost the manuscript at some point, and when I found that and typed it up into the computer, then that file disappeared. I mean, so there was just a lot of obstacles and roadblocks with coming up with this story, and so it really was a labor of love. And so it's also the most expansive story that I've ever written, and as such will be like the first, I guess, series that I will be attempting to write. I generally don't write really series of books. I like to write, one shots, basically. You tell a whole story in a book, and I like that. But this world in my mind is so big that it is going to require a lot more storytelling. And so that's kind of the journey, I guess, of why I decided to write this book. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a cool cover too. Kind of reminds me of The Gunslinger of Stephen King with the Dark Tower.
Right. Yeah. That was, I was really happy with the cover artist whenever he came up with this idea. And because all of the stuff that I was coming up with was pretty goofy and pretty silly. And I reached out to him. He was like, you know what, let me see what I can come up with. And so he sent me this back, and I was like, wow, that's it. That is absolutely it. Very, very cool. And so, yeah, I did not do that myself. So, yeah, my artistic talent has limits.
Yeah, the best thing I could do for you is stick figures, but
Right.
yeah, no, this cover looks great, and it definitely reminds me. It's given off for me anyway. It's giving me Dark Tower Stephen King vibes, especially with the Gunslinger. So, and I like westerns. I like cowboys. I like outlaws. People who go a bit against the grain a little bit. So, or maybe it's like a Pale Rider just shows up, and delivers justice.
Yeah, and it's kind of featuring one of the main characters in the book, and he is from this order of I guess warrior monks who are kind of like gunslingers, and so he is basically the only one of those left at the beginning of the book, and so he's on his own journey dealing with that and trying to find out what happened and who's behind the evil and all of that type of stuff in the world. But at the same time, there are other main characters. The other two main characters are coming from a different angle, and they are trying to go out and explore the weirdness that's going on in this desert world of Quad, because things are getting weird again. Things are getting strange. So at the beginning of the story, you find out that in Quad's distant past, there was this cataclysmic event type of thing that destroyed most of their planet, and turned it into this planet that's been slowly dying, and now it's getting to the point where it's almost dead, and so the power players are trying to figure out what to do about this, how they're going to save the planet if they can, and all of this type of stuff. And so the other two main characters are hired by one of these guys to go out and explore this world and find out what's going on, because things are it's getting weird again. And so these two, I guess, groups, these two elements meet. The lone gunslinger guy and these other two guys kind of meet in the middle, and then things get really weird and start to pop off. And so it's a fantastic, I think, exciting story, and I absolutely love it.
Well, at first you had my curiosity, but with that cover, now you have my attention. So there you go. It's done deal, folks. Done deal. Let me just put it to you that way. Have there been any special memories for you from being at book signings or other events, whether you're there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
Yeah, I mean, the first book that I ever wrote was way back in the halcyon days of self-publishing, right as it was getting popping off, that whole scene. and it was called the Saga of Seamus. This fantasy adventure that I was kind of trying to write for a young adult audience, and I had this woman illustrate it, and so she was from this town way out in the middle of nowhere in western New Mexico, and they have this tiny little library out there, and she's just this library was having like this festival or something like that, and and so they invited me to come out and do a signing event, and that was like the best like book signing event that I had, because I think everybody in this town of a couple hundred people had read that book, and they were all like coming up and talking to me about the different characters and things that were going on, like giving me like gifts related to the book, and and things like that. And then there was a bluegrass band in the next room playing the whole time. I mean, it was fantastic. It was a real shindig, and that was probably one of the best experiences that I've had as far as as far as like book signings and stuff like that go. I mean, and those are hard to come by, because I've also had experiences of you set up a table at Hastings, God rest its soul, and you're out there trying to like sell your books right by the front door, and people are like walking in and actively avoiding eye contact with you, and so it goes both ways. It goes both ways, and so that's that was a good time though, and I enjoyed Daddle.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Are there any writers you hope to see somewhere down the line that you haven't had a chance to have a conversation with yet?
Oh man, most of my favorite authors are dead. Robert E. Howard.
Oh my gosh, my friend encouraged me to start getting into Sword and Sorcery, so I got The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian Volume 1 over here by Robert E. Howard.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic one. The Del Rey books, they did a great job with those, putting those together, because in the back they have a lot of the letters and stuff like that he was writing and stuff back and forth between like him and H.P. Lovecraft and stuff. There's some of that in there. Yeah, and so they put those in every one of their volumes, and little gems like that. And so those, I think that those are some of my favorite Robert E. Howard publications. And then of course Philip K. Dick, also one of my favorites. Also dead, and so
Blade Runner, anybody? Yeah.
That. I was doing a list of Philip K. Dick movies the other day. I was surprised at how many there actually were. How many of his books and stories have actually been turned into movies lately?
That's right. Yeah. Some of my favorites are off the beaten path here, but I really liked Matt Damon and Emily Blunt's The Adjustment Bureau. I liked Next with Nick Cage and Jessica Biel.
Yes.
So that I like those two movies. I know everybody says that Blade Runner is one of the best movies. Just overall in general, they said it's one of the best movies ever made. I've seen Blade Runner 2049. It doesn't really do anything for me. It's very slow, very boring to me. But there is a group of people out there who really love those movies respectively, and that's fine. But yeah, my favorite. What was another one that Philip K. did? I think it was called Paycheck with Ben Affleck. That was another one. Yes. Look. Say what you will about that movie, and it was directed by John Woo. What do you expect? But I like it. I like Paycheck, and I especially love The Adjustment Bureau. I don't know if you've seen The Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon, but it is stellar. You can watch The Adjustment Bureau for free with ads on YouTube right now in case you want to go back and revisit that, Jason.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, I have the DVD.
Oh, cool. Same here. I have the DVD and the Blu-ray combo pack. Yeah, when they came in those combo packs, I think they still do. But I remember when Blu-ray combo packs were really a thing 10, 15 years ago. Dude, I was buying up so many of those things. You ever hear of a place called Movie Stop, which was like a spinoff of GameStop? Did you ever hear of that?
No, that sounds awesome though.
Okay, well, Movie Stop sold used movies on DVD and Blu-ray, but then they also had the new stuff as well, because they sold the newer movies that were coming. And they also had these midnight release parties when a film would be released on physical media. So I went to like a dozen or so midnight release parties for all kinds of movies. Tron Legacy had one. The Hunger Games movies had one. I mean, there were many dozens and dozens of midnight release parties, respectively. Feel free to look up the images on Google, because you'd be surprised at how many movies got a midnight release party at that venue.
Okay, that would be cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah, I do. And man, yeah, I'm really having a hard time thinking of living authors that I that's terrible. Man,
I mean, I heard Stephen King is still roaming around here somewhere. George R.R. Martin is still alive, so
yeah, both of those guys have disappointed me. So
I can understand.
Like, if I met them, it'd just be why, yeah,
Why?
Like, why, seriously,
Can't think of anyone, huh? All right. Well, if you could meet anyone, living or dead, you would want to meet Robert E. Howard, and then who else would you want to meet who is unfortunately no longer on this earth?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, Robert E. Howard, Philip K. Dick. I'd like to meet Tolkien. I think that he had a fantastic mind, and the fact that he created Middle Earth and all that type of stuff just so he could have somewhere to show off the languages he created, like that's pretty impressive. And that would be fascinating to me. Shakespeare would be cool just so I could come back and say, no, this is who it really was. We could just put this argument to rest. I got a picture. I got a selfie with the guy. And that would be nice. But and I would like to meet John Carpenter. I would like to sit down and talk with him about his storytelling thing because, I mentioned earlier the Big Trouble in Little China, but he really does, as far as like crafting a good story, he does it all. I mean, he doesn't just direct these movies. He writes a lot of them too. He edits them. He does the scores and music for them. I mean, and so it's all like it's all encompassing vision as far as he is concerned. And so I would really like to kind of pick his brain about his process of creating stories and how he figures out which elements that he's going to use and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess those would be my top ones.
No, I get that. I love to sit down with Robert E. Howard and pick his brain about Solomon Kane.
Right.
That's my favorite character from Robert, because I have yet to read some of the Conan stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know he also made Cull, so that's another one. So I haven't read any of that, but I have read Solomon Kane, and I got to tell you, that is one heck of a character. Even the movie I thought was really good with James Purefoy. I think that movie is criminally underrated. If you've never seen the movie Solomon Kane and you want to get to know the character a little better, that movie is a really good entry point for new Solomon Kane fans.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a whole lot. I mean, it's just dark. He's a dark character. I mean, the Conan, the setting is dark, but Conan is kind of like this gruff, happy-go-lucky almost type of character that's romping around in this dark, bleak setting. But Solomon Kane is very what's the word? Byronic, I guess. He starts out dark and tainted, and and it's interesting, and an interesting contrast between the other characters I think that Robert E. Howard has written. And yeah, he's one of my favorites as well. I love those stories, for that reason, because the character is, I think one of his best and most complete three-dimensional characters is Solomon Kane.
Yeah, that's a great movie, and I've read, like I said, some of the stories that were featured in the comics and the short stories by Robert E. Howard himself. I believe it was some of the original published material, and it's very, very good to me. So, and I like characters like that. The battle between, I've always been fascinated between the battles between heaven and hell, angels and demons. And, in this case, Solomon Kane is a Puritan warrior who is cursed, but he redeems himself by sending these evil forces and demons back to hell so that he can cleanse his soul. He can get, basically, it's kind of it's a redemption story.
Right.
And I like stuff like that personally and professionally. So Solomon Kane, that's why he's one of my favorite characters, so much so that you can't see it right now, and I'm not wearing it today, but unfortunately, but I do have a Solomon Kane t-shirt.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, because if you go, and this is for anyone who's interested in these properties and these characters, right, Jason? If you go to tpublic.com, which is a website that sells tons of geekery and fandom type shirts, just type in Solomon Kane, Conan the Barbarian, He-Man, Masters of the Universe. all these different properties from the 80s, 90s, and other stuff as well, not just 2 particular decades that I just mentioned. I even have a T-shirt for the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves. Pop quiz, hot shot. Which that, by the way, that's what the T-shirt says. Pop quiz, hot shot. In the Speed font, by the way. In the font of the movie, Jason. It's true. I have it. It's in my wardrobe. It's over here.
Nice.
So if you want a Solomon Kane T-shirt, a really good-looking Solomon Kane T-shirt, go to tpublic.com, look up Solomon Kane, treat yourself. Because they got tons of Conan the Barbarian, they got a couple, not too many. They only have like 6 or 7 Solomon Kane shirts, unfortunately. But there is one design of Solomon Kane that I really, really liked, and that's why I bought the shirt.
Okay. tpublic.com.
tpublic.com. It's TEE public, the word public.com. That's how you spell it out. So, and they're on social media all the time. They're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. What do you call it? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. But yeah, I've been buying T-shirts from them for many, many years because I have Speed shirts, from the movie, not the other thing.
Mhm.
Star Wars shirts, Star Trek, all kinds of stuff. And I guarantee you, Jason, since you mentioned this earlier, you mentioned Farscape and Babylon 5. Pretty much 99.9% certain you're going to be able to find plenty of Farscape and Babylon 5 shirts.
Wow. Okay.
I'm serious.
All right.
I'm not messing with the audience here. So visit tpublic.com. Good people over there. # not a sponsor of this show, but if they want to be, call me maybe. All right.
Mhm.
Call me maybe. And don't forget to like and share this with your closest friends. If you're watching us live on the replay, thank you so much for doing that. And if you have any questions for Jason, let us know in those comments. Let us know in the chat. But yeah, Robert E. Howard has come up a number of times on this program that people have said that they're a fan of his properties, fan of his work. They have his his collections of short stories and the paperbacks and Del Rey, as you mentioned. Grayson D. Sullivan, who's a writer, of a friend of ours, he's the one who mentioned, hey, if you want to get into sword and sorcery, go back to the very beginning and read Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a very dynamic writing style. I mean, I really think that most of the pulp writers from that era were really kind of like America's literary voice coming into its own. And, whereas before it was tied a lot to the old world and the traditions coming out of Europe and things like that. But I really think that, the pulp writers, particularly were, and as far as like pop culture and stuff like that was concerned, America's pop culture zeitgeist and pop culture voice. I mean, I really think that it was these pulp writers that were, really pioneering that were really blazing those trails back then. And Robert E. Howard was, one of the kings. Because just the way that he writes and the words that he uses and the way that he describes things and the flow of his stories is like absolutely fantastic, and it's something apart from anything else, especially at the time. And I think that so much that came after that was taken and derivative from Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, and a few of the other ones, pulp authors that were around in the 20s and 30s. So much of what we're doing, even to this day, still comes from their tradition and the worlds and characters and stories that they told. That we owe them a huge debt, and like I said, especially in creating something that was uniquely American. If you really want to find out, where our pop culture comes from, that's where you need to start. That's where you need to go back to. I mean, yeah, read the literary authors too, F. Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway and all of those type of guys. But yeah, the stories that appealed to the masses, the stories that like captured imaginations and stuff like that, that was the pulp authors.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah! Yes! Yes!
That is so true, man. That's why we just gave you the cheer right there. So yeah, he's right. No, seriously, he's right. And I'm learning this more and more as I go. Me anyway. And not to toot my own horn here, because it's not about me. It's about our guest of the week, of course, with Jason being the center of attention because he deserves it. The more stories I'm reading, not just from today's authors, but also like going back and reading some of the old school, the classic kind of stuff, the more I realized, man, they really had a handle on things when they were writing these stories. And now with some of these new writers, such as yourself and the other people that I've met through the course of this writers Discord that I'm a part of, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're bringing a lot of things back that were, you know, either dormant or not as popular as they were back in their day, respectively. So we're kind of like, we're doing the good sense of rebooting these things rather than some of the stuff that's going on in Hollywood right now.
Right.
It's because we all know it's a mess out there in Tinseltown. But when it comes to indie writing and indie publishing here, you know, with Jason, myself, and the other people that I've met and people that you may have seen at book festivals and signings, all these other types of events, we have a voice and we're going to make it heard no matter what. So just watch out, world. We're coming. we're going to give you the best of the best that we can offer, right, Jason? Because
That's absolutely correct.
Our good friend Viper, we are the top 1% of all indie writers, the elite, the best of the best. We'll make it better. There you go. There's your Top Gun reference for the day, Jason. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I had to bring it up, man, because the 80s is where it was at, man. Those movies, the fashion, the music, everything. It was the best.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, you know, if we were to make a top 10 list right now, most of my favorite movies that are in my top 10 list were released in the 1980s. Specifically, one of my all-time favorites being 1984's The Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, come on.
Right.
Come with me if you want to live. I mean, it's just so good. It's so good. And I had the pleasure of meeting Kyle Reese himself. I met Michael Biehn, and I told him how much I love that scene in the Tech Noir Club. And I said, what was it like filming that? He says, well, when you're 26 or 27, you're holding a 12-gauge shotgun and you're shooting in the middle of the night, you tend to have fun. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding, because the Tech Noir scene is the best scene of the whole movie. So, at least in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, when was the last time you saw The Terminator, Jason?
Let's see. It was
this?
Around the pandemic when I was rewatching all of my old favorites, and so that, yeah, and so it would have been around that.
It's a good one too.
Yeah. It's been around that time. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it absolutely right. I mean, especially for sci-fi and things like that. I mean, the 80s. Well, I don't know. There just seemed to be so much more freedom and exploration in Hollywood at that time, right? That we're really not seeing now because they were trying to shore everything up for some reason and just put out superhero movies and live action reboots constantly forever, and that to such a degree that I mean they really lost the plot. They really lost their vision and their sense of adventure as far as like making movies and things like that goes. I mean, what I'm sure you saw a couple of weeks ago, Disney announced that they were looking for some kind of original IP that they could start exploiting and running into the ground now because they've run Star Wars and Lucas and Marvel into the ground. So they're like, we need something new that's going to bring the boys back. And we've lost the plot and we need to change course on this. And so, they're looking for an original IP and things like that. But yeah, I wonder how much good that's going to do. Because they've strayed so far from the path. I mean, Hollywood in general, and because the other studios, once Disney started making billion-dollar Marvel movies and stuff like that, everybody else jumped onto that bandwagon, and that's literally all that we've been getting. It's like, but the 80s and up to the mid 90s, you really had some great exploratory movies that we are not getting today, and that's really sad because as far as popular culture goes, and America, like film was also something that Hollywood, the whole world knows Hollywood. I mean, it's also something distinctly and uniquely American, and so using film and movies as a storytelling platform and format is something that is part of our heritage as far as that goes. And that we have completely dropped the ball on that. And so, I mean, I agree with, what you were saying about the indie authors that, it's like, we're coming, and we're going to do it. And it's the best. And so, bringing that back, kind of a in a type of I think a pop culture type of renaissance is something that is going to have to happen, and is happening, in the world. Movies, sure, but literature and comic books and all of that type of stuff, we're really starting to see this type of thing ramp up, and more so people like the audience, people at large, like looking to these places, for their favorites, for their next favorite book or movie or comic, and thing or song, and they're really like turning back to that and looking out, back out to there in a way that I don't really think that we've had before. In the 90s, it was kind of popular. It was kind of a trope, the proto hipster thing that, oh, you don't know who Elliott Smith is, or whatever, and this idea of like indie thing. But when you really look into it, I mean, it was really just corporations. It was really just the machine buying up indie properties and spitting them back out, and so all of that kind of stuff has died out, and died out pretty quickly, because the corporations came in and said, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make our money on it this way, and completely stripped the originality away from these people, and started pumping out garbage. And so that was what they were doing. They I think they saw the writing on the wall and wanted to get as much original content as they could, so that they could have something to sell the masses for the next 30 years, and which is what they've been doing. And now everybody's sick of it, and they're reaching out. Oh, we need to find a new original IP, but people are like, no, I saw what you did with the stuff that I used to love, and I'm pretty sure I don't want you touching my next favorite thing. And so we really are getting people looking away from that and at more non-traditional, independent outlets and avenues for their stories and their entertainment. And I think that this is a great and exciting time to be alive, for that exact reason.
I can't add anything more to that. You're the man. You know what, Jason? You're money. That was money. You're so money, you don't even know it. Honestly, you're like a big bear, man. So I there's a 90s reference for you. So good stuff. Totally get it. And I agree with it 100%. I've met a lot of great indie writers over in my time, including you. We got so many stories to tell. It's an exciting time. Indie writing, indie publishing is going to take over. We're going to call the shots. We're going to rule this world with an iron fist, brother. Yeah. And we're going to have fun doing it, because there's so many different genres out there. And there's also subgenres that I think need to be tackled a little bit more, or maybe dove into a little bit more. So stay tuned. More to come. Absolutely. So here's one for you. What is one book that belongs on everyone's bookshelf that is not your own?
Oh, not my own. Okay.
Yeah, so not your book, but you have to pick a book that belongs on every single person's bookshelf that is not yours.
The Three Musketeers.
Oh, All for One, One for All by Alexander Dumas, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I think that as far as like adventure and character and all of that type of stuff, I mean, this story is absolutely beautiful. I just reread it, as a matter of fact, and it holds up. I mean, say what you want about the movies made about it and all of this type of stuff. The book itself is classic for a reason, and really anything by Alexander Dumas is worth reading and owning and stuff like that on your shelf. But another one, a little more modern, that I think that everybody should have a copy of on their shelf, is The Last Unicorn. That is one of the most poignant and beautiful books that I have ever read. The movie traumatized me as a child, but the book itself, I mean, I reread it about once a year, and every time it's just as good, just as beautiful. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of that book in particular.
No, that's wow. Okay, sorry about that. My mouse was being fidgety, but good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to have to add these to my read. I mean, I've seen the movie adaptations of Three Musketeers. I grew up on the Disney version with Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt, which is hilarious, by the way.
Right.
And Three Musketeers is a heck of a story. And I also liked its in the movie canon. There's the 1993 Disney live action version with, like I said before, Kiefer Sutherland and company, and Tim Curry. Don't forget about Tim Curry.
Right.
But there was a follow-up to that came out some years later, but it was based on a different story, and it was The Man in the Iron Mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a good, like, spiritual sequel to the Disney film, even though they were made by two very different studios with two very different sets of actors and filmmakers and all that kind of jazz. But you got to remember, The Man in the Iron Mask had a young up-and-coming Leo DiCaprio. It had Jeremy Irons, right? You know, you had John Malkovich hamming it up, you know, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I forget who the love interest was, but she I mean, all the actors and actresses in the movie were very, very good too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
the Man in the Iron Mask is a good one too. You familiar with that one, I'm assuming?
Yeah. And I was going to say, I think around that time they also did The Count of Monte Cristo.
That's another one written by Alexander Dumas, right? Did he
Yeah.
write that one? Okay, yeah. The 2002 movie with Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce. Yeah. That's a good movie, actually.
Yeah. And you know, that's kind of the trifecta of Alexander Dumas books are those three right there. I mean, so yeah, and I think that the movie adaptations are pretty solid. Yeah, but like I said, the books themselves, endless well springs of inspiration.
Well, as a follow-up to that, because I was asking this to some friends of mine recently, for someone who wants to get into classic literature, such as the stories written by Alexander Dumas and all these other classic, like Robert Louis Stevenson, for example, Treasure Island, right? The Curious Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. If someone wants to start reading those, is it best for them? And it doesn't matter what age range they are. I'm just speaking in a general sense, if you don't mind me asking. Do you think it's better for them to read the original unabridged versions or the great illustrated classics versions of these stories? If you remember the great illustrated classics iterations.
I mean, you know, I would say read the original versions, but I understand that our brains have been conditioned and shaped differently now, and so, you know, trying to tackle those things is an exercise in itself, because you know, we're literally having to retrain our brains how to read, and, you know, instead of interact and, you know, consume information via the screen. It's a whole different process. And so if you're trying to go back and read those books, I mean, read the originals if you can. You know, but understand that that's going to be part of it. I mean, the language is different, the flow is different, the pacing is different. I mean, you know, it's a completely different type of thing. And so, you know, you really have to kind of, you know, train your brain, you know, backwards in order to read again, and to sit down and have the patience and stuff like that to read through a book and read through a story. And so, so that's, you know, absolutely try to read the old books. But, you know, if you're just looking for an idea of what the story is about, and you know, that sort of thing, something that's going to be easier to digest, you know, for you to see if you want to try to read the older book, then yeah, you know, read the illustrated classic and things like that. But you know, but do know that, I mean, you're missing out on the original authors, like, you know, storytelling, as far as that's concerned. That even if you're reading the original classic, you're going to get the gist of the plot and the storyline and the characters and stuff like that. But what the author himself brings to it is not going to be there, because it's somebody else taking that work and adapting it, you know, in a format that it was never intended to be adapted towards. And so, you know, you will be missing out on some of the original beauty and the reason that these books are classics and have illustrated classics and comic books and movies and, you know, and all that kind of stuff made about them in the first place. And so, you know, I always suggest, you know, to try to work towards being able to read those original classic works.
Very diplomatic is this young man, Jason DeGray, isn't he, folks? Very diplomatic. He's like, well, we could go about it this way, but if you went about it that way, so basically you're trying to pull a meme from social media where she says, why not both?
Right.
Just read the originals, but also read the illustrated classics version. See the differences between the two. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, it really is hard to try to train your brain to actually sit down and read one of these books, you know, because that it is a whole thing. It is a whole other thing, and something that we have been conditioned away from. So yeah, I mean that really is the biggest hurdle with this type of stuff. And I think that why people, men especially, are not reading as much as they used to, because that's not how our brains have been conditioned in the past. If you really think about it, it's only been 10 or 15 years. And so much has happened so quickly in that time, that we consume and interact with information differently so drastically in that sort of time that we actually have to retrain our brains to go back and sit down and read a book. It's crazy. I mean, if you really want to see what I'm talking about, really do pull Three Musketeers off the shelf, or Lord of the Rings even, or anything like that, and try to sit down and read it and see how long you can actually sit there and read that book and pay attention to it without reaching for your phone, and really be present to just how quickly your attention is shifts, or I need to do something else, and how your brain is already trained to consume information in these like little bite-sized chunks like that, and that how much resistance that you actually get from trying to sit down and read through a book. It's a whole thing, but it's a worthwhile thing, I think, in order to train your brain to be able to do this again, because the way that we interact and consume and retain print information is infinitely better and more beneficial for us as a whole than it is trying to consume information off of a screen. There have been studies about it out there. It's an actual thing. Our brains process information differently reading books than reading things off of the screen. Even reading a book off of a screen, it's a whole different process, and it lights up different areas of our brain altogether. And so, yeah, being able to sit down and interact with a physical book and mull over what the author is saying and take time with the story and reflect on what you've read and things like this, it's infinitely better for your brain and for you as a growth and development as a person in general, right? Because you're developing critical thinking skills, you're developing a patience, you're developing an attention span. All of these things are great and beneficial and things that we need to reclaim. And so I wouldn't say that I'm trying to be political here and either one works. Again, like absolutely read the old stuff and read a book if you can. But like I said, if you're trying to figure out, is this something I would want to read? Is this something that I would want to exercise my brain towards? Then yeah, pick up the comic book and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a cool story. Let's see what the original's like. So I'm always pointing towards the actual books, the actual physical copies of things.
So at the end of the day, when the dust settles and the sun goes down, the simplest thing that a person can do, especially nowadays, is take a look. It's in a book.
Oh, yeah, that's the reading rainbow. It's
So yeah, I figured he would. I figured some of my guests understand the reference, some of them don't, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But yeah, thank you for noticing that. There you go. Well, I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you. And we're grateful to have had Jason DeGray on this episode of Anti-Quote. Jason, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you, get to know you a little bit better, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished and everything you're going to accomplish moving forward. If someone wants to know more about you and check out your book and some of the other projects you got going on, where can they follow you, Jason, on social media?
Oh, well, I'm on Facebook at Jason DeGray Author, and LinkedIn, not the same name. I don't get on X or Twitter or whatever it's called much, or TikTok at all. And so those are the two places that I am around and interact most frequently. And then I have a website up for Outlaw Star Press. So that's outlawstarpress.com. If you kind of want to see what's coming up next for me and where I'm moving.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, kind sir, for being here. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. We got some great coffee and refreshments there in the green room of our virtual studio. Just joshing. It's all good. But my name is Ryan of Anti-Quote Channel. Follow me across all forms of social media. Where am I pointing to? There it is, at Anti-Quote Channel. That's where you can check out all our past shows. We have playlists for you in case you're interested in a certain fandom or a particular discussion topic. Also, I want to let you know we're on the road to 5,000. And once we do, we'll have a live stream that will include returning favorites. Jason is welcome to come back and say hello to everybody. And we're going to have special giveaways that you, the incredible person who's watching or listening to this, is going to be eligible to win. We also have merch. We have shirts. We have hoodies. Hey, we're getting into fall season, folks. We have stickers you can add to your water bottles. We have coffee mugs and notepads, stationery, all that kind of stuff. It's all available in our Redbubble store. Link is in my social media bio. It's also in the link tree that is listed down below in the video description here of this episode. So feel free to check that out and treat yourself. All that good stuff. By the way, there's a story out there that I have called Wolf of the West that I wrote, and it's published as a part of this anthology, Western Tales Volume 1 from Veritas Entertainment, available right now on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. So check that out as well. And hey, September 6th, whereas to this episode's live airing, it is National Read a Book Day. So let us know a book that you would recommend to somebody or something that you are currently reading. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Share with us on social media, on our Instagram page or Facebook page at And I Quote Channel. We want to hear about what you've been reading, something you would recommend to a friend, a coworker, a neighbor. It's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be reading, and reading books is one of the best activities that a person can do, at least in our Jason and I's humble professional opinion. Am I right? Yeah, he's nodding in the background. I can see it in the backstage of his studio. So thank you very much for being here. And I quotes on Saturdays, 12 p.m. EST, and the movie watch-alongs are on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So do not forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And remember, life is better when reading a book and supporting indie creators from all over the world. Take a look.
Strelin of Ulia is a cursed man, and cursed men are dangerous. He has traveled the known world seeking a way to lift his curse. So far, he has not found what he is looking for. When Trellin arrives in the city of Anshi, in the nation of Paraba, he meets a cold reception. The desert nation is unforgiving. Its people have proven untrustworthy, and the locals have no love for foreigners. Now, a wealthy stranger offers to lift Trellin's curse for a price, and he must make a choice. Seek a solution elsewhere, or risk imprisonment in the Tower of Ruhak, a place from whence no man has ever escaped. The known world of Atera, the prisoner of Ruhak Tower. Now available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle.
A mission for the police. A mysterious passenger. Mitch Mayhew is carrying more than the mail on this flight. Unwanted Passenger is a roaring, prop-spinning, pulse-pounding historical thriller for fans of aerial stunts, flapper-era intrigue, and reluctant heroes with debts to pay and demons to outrun. Order your copy of Unwanted Passenger today.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.